Well, hey, good evening, folks out there in Facebook and YouTube land. This is Tim. I'm going to do something a little different tonight. As you know, we have been in a pandemic for more than a year now, almost a year and a half. And the COVID-19 pandemic, if you want to call it the Wuhan Red Death, as Chris Plant calls it on his show, it's also known as the SARS-2 virus. And I wanted to give you personal testimony about myself and my family and how we have reacted to the COVID crisis, the pandemic, and all. And I'd first learned about it, probably like everybody else. It was a news blurb. And the more I read about it, the more concerned I got. And this was around the time when the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl 50 against San Francisco 49ers. And fortunately for us Chiefs fans, the Chiefs came back and won the Super Bowl. But I remember I texted my boss's boss. Now, I'm a courier here in Kansas City. I work for a subcontractor for DHL. And DHL is a global shipper of all kinds of goods, from the smallest of items to boats and trucks and cars, probably. I'm in the express end of it, so we're kind of the smaller packages things, only up to certain weights of pounds. And I've worked there now 8.5 years for the subcontractor, and they have a contract for numerous states here in the Midwest. And so I sent an email to the guy that basically runs it for the owners of the company. And, or I sent him a text and I says, hey, I'm kind of concerned about this virus that's coming out of China. Apparently there's a number of people dying. And of course, we handle packages from China all the time. In fact, ever since I've been there, the majority of our shipping has been packages from China. And so I sent the essentially kind of general manager a little text saying, I got a little concerned about this. Have you thought any about it? Are you concerned at all? What's your perspective type deal? And I got a text back and he says, Timmy, if you're that concerned, don't come into work. Well, I'm the breadwinner for my family. I couldn't just quit work. I've got pay bills and car payment and insurance and food for people and everything else. So it's not like I could stay home. And my wife, I believe, was working at the time. Yeah, she was working at the time and was going to lose her job in a couple months because of the pandemic. My job just did the opposite. So anyway, I'm going to go into work just like normal. Maybe they'll provide us gloves or something, some type of protection, because I'm handling packages all day long. I have to grab them off the conveyor belt and put them into my van, and then I have to deliver them to people or businesses wherever I'm going. So I'm going to touch these packages all day. And I was pretty sure that we had stuff coming in from Wuhan, which, as a matter of fact, we did. And so the question was, well, how long will the virus live on the package? And everything else. So I had concerns going in that Monday morning, and nobody else seemed to be too concerned or anything like that. It was just kind of a blow-off thing until that supervisor came in that Wednesday himself. So a couple days after I sent him a text, he did a little research on it, whatever, talked to people, the owners of the company, and he came here to Kansas City. And he says, well, we're going to be spraying the packages, and we're going to give you guys gloves and everything else. It's become a little bit of a concern for us, too. Mostly probably a liability issue more than anything. But we knew it was a tough virus, and people were obviously dying over in China, and it started to spread to other countries, and more people were getting deathly sick and everything like this. So that was my first experience with the COVID-19 virus. I'm going to grab a couple notes here. I talked to one of my good friends happens to work for the post office here in Kansas City area. And he said, this is kind of getting later into last year, and in about middle of 2020. He says, we were having lunch one day, and he says, Tim, he says, I think this virus has been around a little longer. And I says, well, Brad, what do you mean? And he says, one of my coworkers at the post office had some of these symptoms. He couldn't taste. He had a fever. He went home sick. He was out for a little while. He finally recovered and came back. He says the week after he left, I got sick too. And I'm an asthmatic, and I was hitting my nebulizer about 8 times a day, but I finally kicked the thing. Well, it turns out that his coworker was going to have knee surgery. This would have been spring of 2021, I think about April. And he went in, and they were doing pre-tests on him. And sure enough, this guy had COVID antibodies. Again, he says the only time this guy took sick was in December. So this is December 2019, before Christmas. And my friend had recovered. This guy had recovered. I guess he went on and had his knee surgery. I don't know. And my friend Brad and I had planned a vacation to go visit another friend in Florida. We took our wives and we went down to Florida in October. And my wife got word that one of her church members had been hospitalized with COVID, and his name is David Williams. And David's kind of a hefty man from what I remember. And he's about our ages. We're in our mid-50s. And David went to the hospital. And she kept getting updates, and he kept getting worse and worse. And they didn't think he was going to make it. I believe he was in the hospital from the time we went on vacation, the first full week of October, all the way into this past April. So about 6 months. And he is home now, I believe. He's rehabbing. He's having to learn to do some things like walk and everything else. You get a little bit of atrophy in the hospital after a while. But anyway, so as far as I know, he's recovering okay. Now, there's been a lot of COVID deaths. There's no question. Unfortunately, the counting of all the COVID deaths has been, I believe, exaggerated. I know my supervisor, the lead supervisor at work for the company, was saying, a guy he was riding his motorcycle, a truck broadsided and killed him. And obviously he was killed in the auto accident, but they listed it as a COVID death because he tested positive for COVID. So anybody that died in 2020, they tested for COVID, and if they had COVID, they listed it as a COVID death, which increased the numbers. Another thing that bothers me about the COVID thing, well, there's a couple things really. It was certainly convenient for the 2020 election for the Democrats. They don't let any problem go to waste. They magnify it somehow. And I don't think we can say for sure that this virus was released out of a lab in China, though it looks like it. And was it used to help spoil Trump's reelection? Might have been part of it. I could see that. I'm not going to go full-blown conspiracy here, but there's some things that would lead one to question exactly what's going on with this virus. It was definitely politicized. The Democrats don't let any good crisis go to waste. So that's what they did. President Trump, much to his credit, realized this was a major problem early. There were signs that maybe the government knew about this in November of 2019 when Trump was briefed on it. I don't know. But he was certainly concerned, I believe, in January, because at the end of January, he closed down flights out of China to the United States. He was the first world leader to do so. And he probably delayed a lot of the virus coming here. And those Chinese flights ended up going to Europe. And we all know what happened in Italy and other countries. It got really, really bad. And then it found its way over here in more mega doses somehow. So we have that. Now, it's interesting that this virus is called SARS-2. Now, I can't remember, it was 10, 15, 20 years ago, there was a SARS virus outbreak. Maybe it was about a decade ago, I believe up in Canada. And people got really sick. And of course, some people died. I mean, die from chicken pox, even to this day, even though it's pretty much eradicated, or when people get it's mild cases. But it depends on your immune system, and I'm going to talk about that as well. So that's kind of been my experience on it. Now, before we left on vacation a year ago at this time, my family was under quarantine. My son was working a warehouse job at the time that he very much enjoyed, and he came home on a Thursday, first week of August last year. And he was sick and had a 102-degree fever when I got home and checked him with the temperature. So gave him, I don't know, maybe some Advil or something for the fever. Immediately, I had a can of Lysol half full, so I ended up spraying the house with that. I took Lysol wipes and wiped everything down. I made sure I inhaled some of the Lysol, which is supposed to kill the virus. And I didn't squirt it up my nose. I just sprayed it in the air and just let it trickle down and took a nice deep breath through my nose. And that seemed to work for us. My wife put my son on some zinc 3 times a day, 50 milligrams, and vitamin D at least once a day. And that was on a Thursday. We had him tested on Sunday. That's the earliest we could get him for the COVID test. He was positive. So we were quarantined. I was going to be on vacation that week anyway. And so I let my supervisors know. I let my supervisors know immediately when my son had the fever. He said, go ahead and come in on Friday anyway. So I did. And I tried to avoid people. And I was swabbing my nose out with wet ones and using Lysol and gloves and whatever to be safe. And went to work. I checked. I did not have a fever. My son still did. And his fever finally broke on Sunday after he got the test. Later that afternoon, his fever finally broke, and he was more like himself the next day. Again, the only thing we treated him with was 50 milligram zinc tablets 3 times a day and vitamin D. And I think my wife probably gave him multivitamin too. I don't know. And he didn't eat much over the weekend and drank a lot of water and stayed in his room. So, and the wife and I were kind of concerned to see if we were going to get it. We looked at each other. No, we could taste everything. My son was still tasting his food. Seemed to lose sense of taste or smell with the virus. That was 2 of the main things, and the fever and feeling like crap and everything else. So at that time, whatever that particular strain of COVID was, whatever he got strain of it, wasn't too terrible, and he recovered. I was home for my vacation. We checked with the doctor's office as well. Mask up and go to the store, but you got to mask up and go back home. That was it. That's all we could do. And then the government had mandated if people were quarantined for COVID that their work had to pay them for time missed. I ended up getting an extra week off work with pay. But was quarantined at home. So it really was not much of a vacation. It was a staycation. I could mow the yard. I could do the laundry and watch TV or, play around on the internet, whatever we could do, and to keep ourselves entertained at home. So anyway, so that was that. And of course, wife couldn't go see the daughter. Our daughter's type 1 diabetic, so she had to stay away from her. There was no vaccine at the time. But to Trump's credit, he gave a lot of updates. They pushed forward their plan, warp speed, and got some vaccinations. Actually, the vaccines were, I think, ready really before the election, and the Democrats wouldn't release them until after the election, and all this and that. The Fauci story and all that, and we're finding out more and more evil stuff every day about the origins and the people that propagated the virus with labs and everything like that. So I won't go into that and everything. So you probably caught up on some of the news things. Before this all happened, before it was all known about COVID, back in December of 2019, my wife went to her hairdresser to get colored up before Christmas because she has some gray hair. And one of the other stylists at the salon, his name is John, had a wife who had passed from cancer. But before she did, for flu season or to avoid the flu, she couldn't take the flu shot because of her chemotherapy. So what they did was they said, you take a combination of zinc and vitamin D and vitamin C in these amounts, and that will act as a flu vaccine for the most part. The only thing you won't have in it is the live virus from the flu, but everything else is there, for you. So my wife suggested that that's what we should do because you never know what's going to happen in the flu season, and we're not really with it on the vaccines. Let's just say there's a lack of trust on it. So, I mean, we've all had our vaccines as children. I still have a scar on my left shoulder from when I got a shot at elementary school in 1970. So that's been over 50 years, and I've had that thing ever since. They had this big gun, and it looked like a drill, and it got you pretty good there. But I think that was probably measles, mumps, rubella, something like that, polio vaccine. I remember taking the oral polio vaccine back in the day and stuff like that. And I think I had the last tetanus shot was the year my daughter was born. So that's kind of, that. As far as being ill, we haven't really had, the last time I was really sick was probably first year I was a courier that December. The flu was going around really bad that December. Everybody at our base got it. And sure enough, I woke up with a fever one morning and was just feeling like, crap. It was obviously the flu. And I knew I needed a doctor's note. So I went up to the CVS pharmacy and saw the minute nurse there. And I called my old boss, Shelly. She's no longer with the company, but I says, Shelly, this is Tim. I says, I'm at the Minute Clinic. I've got 102-degree fever, so I won't be coming in today. She says, and because I didn't have to be until about noon that day anyway, and this is about 11 o'clock. She says, well, you better bring a doctor's note. I said, yeah, the nurse lady's going to write me one up. No problem. I've got 102-degree fever, but we were just rampantly sick at the base that December. But that's the last time I've been that sick. I might have had some congestion from, I was getting bronchitis or pneumonia every other year there for a while. So I've had, lung stuff, and I've had nasal issues. I probably have chronic sinusitis. I'll have the sniffles year round. When I mow the yard and weed eat the yard, I kick up all the dirt and dust and the pollens and whatever's in the grass clippings and the weeds and everything else, and get a little poison ivy on my skin and break out and stuff like that. So that's pretty much about the extent of it, except for my one time with pancreatitis back in 2008. But other than that, fairly healthy. Now, this is precipitated by my mother. My mother came down with Alzheimer's, dementia. She was probably starting to come down with it in the early 2000s, but by 2006, we had to move in with her. And when we counted her medication, we had found out that she was taken up to 2-3 days in advance of her medications. And of course, this was having an adverse effect on her. So we cut her off the driving. We moved into the house with her and took care of her for the next couple of years until she was too bad with the dementia, Alzheimer's, and she had to go to nursing home. And she survived there another 5 years before she passed, but that was at the age of 89. But when I first checked on my mom on her medications, and she was taking some supplements and things, and I noticed that her feet were really pale. It looks like the veins were crumpled in and everything. And she didn't have a good color to her and everything like that. And I got reading in the library online about vitamins and minerals and how they affect you and what they're for and everything. So I immediately put her on a multivitamin. I gave her some extras of this and that. And in a couple of days, her skin pinked up, her veins popped open wider. She was much more active and stronger. And I said, well, if they work for my mom at age, she was 82 at the time, then maybe I should take them. I'm 40 years difference. She was 40 when she had me. So I started taking multivitamins then. And and maybe a few other things there. And I started noticing a difference. And I took these ones called Super B. Now, how I found out the Super B vitamins, which is a multi B complex vitamin, has all the B vitamins in there. And if you ever had a 5-hour energy or 3-hour energy bottle, whatever it is, you look on there, you find the ingredients. It has a lot of B vitamins in high concentration. And but I didn't want to pay, $3 to $5 a bottle for that, and it had extra caffeine and everything else. Well, I was drinking plenty of caffeine. I mean, I've got Mountain Dew right here. Okay, so I'm a big Mountain Dew drinker since I've been about 16, 17 years old. Anyway, that's 40 years. Wow, still alive. So I started taking the multivitamins back then, and then I added on the Super Bs. And I found out they gave me a lot of extra energy. I was probably vitamin deficient and probably mineral deficient to some areas. And anyway, I started on those, and I've been on those ever since. The only problem I did have was pancreatitis. My gallbladder was full of gallstones, and one of them broke loose and went down to my pancreas and tried to rip it open. And that was not a good scene. I was definitely sick in the hospital for about a week and recovered enough in 2 weeks to have my gallbladder out. Fortunately, no issues since. Then that one bad bout of flu for about 24 hours, and that was December of 2013. Other than that, very, very healthy, unless I eat late, eat some spicy food and onions and peppers too late, and then I'll have a gastrointestinal problem in the middle of the night. But other than that, fairly healthy with the vitamins and minerals and everything. And then adding the zinc and the D last year, or I should say in December of 2019, I've been really faithful on the zinc. So I haven't had any fevers. Have I had the sniffles? A little bit, but I've always had sinusitis. Have I had, pollen issues? Yeah, I've always had pollen issues with my nose. Haven't had bronchitis that I know of. I had a little chest congestion, but not the massive kind where I knew I need to go to the doctor and get a Z-Pack or something like that. No, nothing like that. So ever since I took the zinc, been fine. Now, there was a product out a couple of years ago called Cold-EEZE, and I don't know if that's still on the market or not, but Cold-EEZE had zinc in it. There was zinc lozenge, and you would suck on those. It would slick up your throat. It was designed to help you get rid of the cold much faster and lessen the severity. Well, apparently it worked, and apparently it works on the coronavirus a little bit, because a cold is actually a coronavirus. It's just the COVID is in the coronavirus family. And they found out years ago that zinc helps with it. And all I can tell you from personal testimony from myself and my wife is that apparently the zinc works. We're a year and a half into this COVID pandemic. And now apparently there's another strain out called the Delta virus. And then I read about one called the Lambda that a friend mentioned to me yesterday on the phone. And I saw that somewhere. And so I guess they're naming the various strains of the COVID virus after the Greek alphabet. I don't know how many letters are in the Greek alphabet, but you can guarantee they'll probably use every letter in the Greek alphabet for all the strains they're going to probably produce, or whatever the virus tends to do. What I can tell you is, so far, zinc worked for my son. Zinc's worked for me and my wife. My daughter, who's type 1 diabetic, did get the Pfizer vaccine. My mother-in-law, who lives with us, she's 86, got 2 shots of Moderna this spring. She hasn't had any problems other than a UTI problem that she has. But at 86, she's still a pretty feisty lady. So we've got her on vitamins and minerals too to help her. So we're trying to stay as healthy as we can. So about the only other thing I can tell you that would help, you take the zinc, take some extra D. I would take the Super B vitamin. I use Nature Valley. You can find where you want. We just get the Walmart brand of multivitamin, and you can find extra DC. I did get the combination, and this might be Spring Valley brand, of calcium, magnesium, zinc, and D. They work together, so you get better absorption for all of them. So your body absorbs more of those nutrients. But what I can tell you so far, this regimen has worked for us. Now, I don't personally go out and hug and kiss people that have COVID. My friend Brad has had COVID, I think twice. He got it this last year. And then our friend Steve down in Florida, he got it this spring and was hospitalized. He's type 2 diabetic. But so far, the wife and I have missed it. My daughter has missed it. And my son had it for 3 days. But all I can say is we take zinc, and it seems to help. Now, if you just buy the zinc alone, the 50 milligram tablets, you can take them up to 3 times a day. If you're taking a multivitamin with zinc, you might want to just take 2 of the extra tablets. The combination we have, the calcium, magnesium, zinc, and D supplement, I think has 150% zinc, and you probably don't want to top out about 200% of the USDA thing there. But you can read online what the maximum levels are for recommendation, and be your own judge. Now, the only other things we do, we spray our house with Lysol. Last year we had to get a new air conditioner, and they were let's listen to ads on the radio, because they were obviously heating and cooling companies that advertise ACs in summer and furnaces in fall. And they were advertising an air scrubber. So when we had to get the AC, new air conditioner, we decided to add in an air scrubber. And basically that is a black light, looks purple. They mount it inside the vent, and it helps eliminate some of the germs and mold and pollen that comes in the house, and kind of zaps them. We had our vents cleaned, so that's helped us quite a bit. We got had to get a new furnace in the fall, and we had to get a new water heater after the deep freeze we had this past February. So spent quite a little bit of money on those 3 items, but we're set for a while because the other ones all last 20, 25 years or so. So we're happy that happened, and we're good for a while. But the other thing we do is we spray some Lysol around the house. We usually use Febreze, but that only masks odors. But we'll spray some Lysol around the house. I use wet ones. I always have at work for my jobs, because I get my hands dirty on my jobs handling all these packages. And so I thought, well, I'm going to buy wet ones. So, if I touch my nose or blow my nose or something like that, I'm putting in dirt particles from Africa and Europe and China and everything in my nose or face or, eyes or, where I scratch or itch or wipe or sneeze or whatever. So combination of wet ones, Lysol wipes, even use the wet one wipe and swab the inside of my nostrils with that, and wipe around my mouth real good, nice, just to not only freshens you up a little bit, but, gets the germs off. So far that regimen's worked. And that's all I can say. So if you want to get the vaccine, hey, that's your decision. So far, I think they just approved the Pfizer vaccine by the FDA. I believe it was yesterday. Now there's some controversy over that. But, if you have medical issues, like my daughter, who's a type 1 diabetic, or my mother-in-law who's elderly, it's maybe not a bad idea to get the vaccine. Just make sure you get the right one. And so far, they think Pfizer is the best of the 3 that's out there here in the United States. So anyway, health to everybody. I just wanted to give you my personal testimony as far as battling COVID-19. And hopefully this will be of benefit to you. And wish you guys all health out there. And I'll go ahead and wrap up this video. Thanks for joining me, and see you next time. I'll have some more stuff probably on Bible and other current events. So hang in there, and best wishes to everybody.